Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone who is on the program.
Hello.
Hello.
Mommy Rachel.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Okay. Wow. So it gives me so much honor, it's such a wonderful opportunity and privilege for me to be hosting these amazing parents. I've known them for a very, very long time. I will not say the time, from back in the day when we were in senior one in Gaza High School. We fondly call them Baba and Mommy Rachel. So it's so beautiful this morning for us to be having this interview. I would like to just dive right in. So Mommy, Baba, can you just tell us a little bit about yourselves? You could start from your childhood days all the way through to now.
I can see Mama is looking at me and with an air of you start. So I will start. First, I want to thank the Wall of Wisdom, and in particular Carol, for inviting us to be part of this group and to be able to share our experiences so that perhaps there can be one or two lessons that people can learn. So I want to thank you very much for this initiative, because I think it is something that is very, very useful to all of us, not just the young ones, but I think even us who are now much older. Going back to the question that Joy raised, starting from childhood, in my case, I come from a very big family. My father had a number of wives. My mother was the first wife, and there were a number of others.
Sorry, please turn on the sound.
Papa, you're on mute.
So you can't hear me? Hello?
Okay, now we can hear you.
Okay. So maybe I start again. Okay, so I was saying that I come from a polygamous family. My father married a number of wives. My mother was the first wife, and indeed I'm the firstborn. So I have the most experience in the family because I saw all that happen in the family, the good things, the negative things. I witnessed all of them. And therefore, from the family point of view, I have probably more knowledge than my siblings. And therefore, in my childhood, we were many in the family. And my father was a very strict disciplinarian. So many times we had rules in the home. We needed to follow those rules as children. We were taught how to work hard. We were taught to be disciplined. We were taught to be respectful. And we had many friends. We had neighboring friends as well. And we used to do a lot more work than just working at home. In my time, we did a bit of bird hunting as well, even animal hunting during dry seasons, which today, of course, is not happening. So we had a fairly wide range of experience. There were, of course, good things, but there were also negative things. When you live in a polygamous family, there are always disagreements. There are scenarios that are many times worrying. We went through all that, but overall, I think that it was a pleasant experience for me to be able to grow up in that kind of family. The kind of things that worry people today would not worry people like us at that time. For example, I studied in school and had my first pair of shoes in senior one.
Wow.
And moreover, in the second week of senior one.
Wow. And
it was not that my father could not afford, because my father was a magistrate by that time. But I think he felt that if he gave me a number of many things, I would get spoiled. So he wanted me to be exactly like those ones who are neighboring us. And therefore, many times we would feel bad, but this was his decision. So overall, I think it was a good experience. The longest that I walked to school was, I think, about 3 kilometers. 3 to school, 3 back, that's about 6 kilometers. Today, of course, many children are going by car, by bus, and so on. But that was sort of a normal thing for us. in our days. So I think that was kind of a general childhood that I can start with. Maybe we can have Mommy as well to say hers.
Well, I had a wonderful childhood experience. I think I grew in a happy home. I was happy growing up. We stayed mostly with our mother. Our father was working in Kisumu. By the way, I come from Kenya. And so when I say Kisumu, someone might say, wow. Okay. So we grew up with our mother, mostly with our mother. Dad was away working, but he could come over the weekends. So most of my childhood was with our mother. But it was a very good childhood. We had a lot of fun. I was a tom girl, not a tomboy. I was a tom girl, climbing trees, doing all kinds of fun. Our mother was strict. So most of the discipline I got was from my mother. That woman beat me. I think because of my character. And if you would annoy her, she would squeeze the bottom of your stomach or the thighs, and she would say, Rachel, I want your face to remain beautiful. I don't want to put scars on it. So, but she gave us a good discipline. Apart from that, the Christian values I got was from Mom. Mom would tell us Bible stories. She would relate as though she's the one who wrote the Bible. I remember when she's telling us the story of Samson and Delilah, how they tied Samson and he cut the rope, how he did it again. And I was just mesmerized how my mom knew all this, because my mom didn't do much schooling, but she really brought us up in the ways of God. Then there was a lot of work. We had to do a lot of work. So she taught us a lot of housework. You had to wake up early, you had to sweep house, you had to put the cows out, you had to go to the river, you leave enough water in the pots. Wow, come holidays, garden work. Oh my goodness, we dug. And up to now, I love garden work because of what I had growing up. So there was a lot of work, but we loved it. Hard work, I have come to learn over the years, kills nobody. I've never attended a funeral of someone who died because of hard work. So those were some of the values in my childhood that my mother put in us. That is a bit of my childhood. I think I can end there for now.
Hard work killed nobody. I think that's a powerful one for our day and age. For many of our parents who feel like, the typical parent today who feels like if their child did something, they're going to break up into pieces. So I've noted that one. Hard work killed nobody. Wow. What are some of these things that you have been very deliberate about making sure your own children carry on those values that you picked when you were children, when you're growing up? Very briefly.
Okay, the number of things that I think we learned from our parents. As I said, my father was very strong on discipline and on hard work, just like Mommy has said. He always wanted us to work hard because he always told us that without hard work, you can't live proper life. So we needed to learn to work hard. We needed to be disciplined. If you are disciplined, you're more orderly, you are more deliberate about certain things that you want to do, and you can limit yourself in doing certain things and expand yourself in doing certain things. So discipline was quite a key thing. He was also very strong on education because he went to primary 6 and he kept on telling us that he wanted all his children to go beyond where he had reached. And having become a magistrate, he felt that all of us could do much better than he did. So he really emphasized education. He also talked a lot about unity. He wanted us to be united, although our mothers were different. And he held many meetings with us when we were young, when we were much older, to try to drill this into our minds so that we all knew that we came from him, and therefore we needed to remain together, we needed to do things together. And that, I think, has remained up to now with my siblings. So for the children, I believe that on the issue of discipline, we have tried our best to push this idea to them so that they are more orderly in the way they do things. We suspect that some of them have run with it, some of them maybe not so well, but it is something that we did our best to be able to push hard. We also did our best on hard work, because we know that wherever you are in the world, if you don't work hard, it's very difficult to achieve anything meaningful, so you need to work hard. From my mother's side, my mother was the first one to teach me about savings, the idea of savings. When I had completed I lived with my mother more when I completed my senior 6, because our father always had a rule. All of us had to stay where he was, all his children, but the mothers, some of them could live in his main home, because he was working in different parts of Lamu at that time. So the first time that I stayed with her mother, we discussed many things. I asked her how she got married, how she met the husband, what happened, and so on.
Wow.
And I got some inkling as to what had happened. But then she told me that as I was growing older, I would need to get a wife when I finished school. So instead of relying on cousins and uncles to get me dowry, I should begin to prepare myself for my dowry.
Wow.
So I needed to save some money. So since I started doing some work, I was doing temporary work as a senior 6, a young man. So he told me that she told me that I could buy some goats or some cows. She would be tying them at home, and they could begin to grow. And as I study, they are growing, the number is growing. And after that, when it comes to marriage, I would just have my own animals. When I have that, even the wife would respect me, the people from the wife's side would respect me, everyone would be able to respect me. So it is something that I learned from her. So those are the key learnings. And I think the savings, has also been passed on to these other people. I believe that virtually all of them are doing some savings of one type or another. Yeah.
We'll talk a bit more about the savings later, but now maybe just to hear from Mami here. I remember when we were in school, Carol used to say that Mommy used to make them scrub bathrooms and clean up on the weekends, all the way from beginning to the end. Maybe you can just break that down for us, Mommy.
Well, as I've told you, we grew up with our mother, and cleanliness was one of the things she emphasized. Our compound was always neat. Before you go to school early in the morning, you have swept the house, you have brought water, as I said before, and you have cleaned the compound. The utensils are washed, nothing is left dirty. So the children had to learn to carry on. Up to now, I really hate utensils sleeping in the zinc, dirty. That one is out.
No.
I tell them, if you leave that one, then the cockroaches will come in and they will say, in the house of Mr. Opiokello, there is good food. So to discourage them, clean sinks, no dirt, no cockroaches.
Wow.
That's what I learned from my mother, which I hope I have passed on to my children.
Scrubbing bathrooms.
And we had to scrub bathrooms, and we were many. So if we left the bathroom that day, I told them, you are going to get a candida, you are going to get diseases. We better keep cleanliness. When you are clean, you chase away the germs. And then from Mom, the Christian values, the stories she told us, the way she told us to go to Sunday school. And come Sunday, it was like Sabbath, no work. That was the day we would relax. So these are some of the things I hope some of our children have taken and will carry on. My husband forgot one thing about cleanliness from his dad. His dad was tough. He would come at night drunk, take a torch, splash on them. Did you wash? Check the legs. Did you bathe? And that is one of the things he has carried on. Thank you.
He has a torch as well.
We have no one now to touch.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm enjoying this tremendously. Maybe because I do have a connection. I was in this house some of those years. So these are wonderful memories. So let's just talk a little bit about your personal life, the place where you now Baba, you said your mom had alerted you in advance. You had collected some goats and some animals. You are a Ugandan based here. You are studying in Lira and all that. How then do you meet mommy, who is for Kisumu?
I think that the mommy is always a much better storyteller. Maybe we should start from her side. Then I can add on a few points.
Well, we say, I saw love made in East Africa. Indeed, it is love made in East Africa. I was born in Kenya. My husband was born in Uganda. We met in Tanzania, Arusha. Isn't that East Africa?
Wow.
That is how our love story comes in. Now I will go slowly backwards. I hear people say fast forward, but maybe now I will go slowly backwards. Okay, when I was in school, we had a career master, and when we were talking about careers, he discouraged us from being secretaries. He really hated someone to say, I'm going to be a secretary. He said, secretaries are wives to their bosses. The bosses sleep with them. So I really never, ever wanted to be a secretary. Now, fast forward. After finishing school, I was admitted in a teacher training college. I didn't want to go for teaching. I wanted to be a nurse, but I couldn't be a nurse because I didn't make it in biology and chemistry. Now my children will laugh at this. Yes, I didn't make it in chemistry and biology. The grades were not good enough. So I ended up having to go to secretarial, not by choice. It was influence of my sister. I had an older sister who was my sister, my mother, my father, my friend. She was paying my school fees. She was staying in Nairobi. I visited her in Nairobi. There was going to be an interview for secretaries, and our neighbor's wife was her friend. So she said, hey, there are interviews tomorrow. Why can't Rachel go and attend? So my sister says, Rachel, you have to go for the interview. I said, which interview? Secretary. Oh, no, I'm not going. But how do you say no to your sister? I said, okay, I will go, but I will fail the interview. So I purposely went to fail the interview and not to pass. I had never done an interview. No one told me how you enter the room, how you sit, how you present yourself. But since I was prepared to fail, it didn't make much difference. So there were many girls that were being interviewed. When I entered the room, crude, good morning, everybody. And they looked at me, look at this girl, everyone laughed. So in short, I was successful in the interview. They told us to come back the following day. We were so many. When we came back the following day, we were only 20. And the guy goes, wow, you are the successful ones. And everyone was hugging one another. And I passed. Here I was, I had to go for this course. I couldn't tell my sister I can't go. Interestingly, they said, we are going to Arusha. Wow, another country. I was excited to go to another country. They were going to give us boom or pocket money, 150 per month. I had never owned 20 shillings as pocket money. So to get this, it excited me. Fast forward, I go to Arusha, Tengeru, I'm training as a secretary. What happened?
So the next phase of the story, I went to study at the University of Nairobi. I was doing a Bachelor of Commerce degree. At the time, this was from 1970 to 73. The country politically was very unstable. I mean, it was still in power. So my dad told me that I should look for a job either in Kenya or Tanzania or wherever I could go, because he feared that the risk that I would face would be very high. I might get killed. So I had some colleagues who were ahead of me who had gone to Arusha and they had got jobs there. So they encouraged me to go there. So I went there and visited different offices, and because they wanted accountants and there were few accountants, I was offered a job immediately on a temporary basis. And so when I was offered a job, I was staying with this friend. So one day he takes me around, we were going around Tengero where she had been trained. And because he had a girlfriend there, so we met the girlfriend, then we also meet her. So when we meet her, she was very, very striking. I still remember up to today, she was wearing a blue dress. She had very, very smooth cheeks. And she had jet blue, black hair. And my mother, this is what I've not said, but my mother told me that she will not accept a woman I want to marry who combs her hair, with hot combing. Because in her mind, if somebody who combs her hair that way cannot fetch water, cannot fetch firewood, cannot carry food from the garden, and therefore, because she used to say, okay, you may be in town, but you can also be in the village. So this one seemed to fit this kind of arrangement that my mom was suggesting. So we were introduced, I talked to her. So because I didn't have another chance to meet her, I proposed immediately to take her out for an outing. In those days, we didn't have dates. And so she told me that, what kind of person are you? You think I'm that kind of a girl? I cannot, I'm not that type of girl. So, and she said in a rude way, she was very rude. So in my mind, because I had met girls who are very shy, I said, this is, I think, the right person for me. Because this is going to challenge me in many ways. And therefore, we met, and then I didn't see her for quite some time. Later on, as fate would have it, I was allocated a house which was not very far from hers. So we became neighbors. So when we became neighbors, naturally we would share many things. We would share salt, we would share sugar, a few things here and there. But she was still kind of very hard at a distance. So what brought her close to me, I was a very avid novel reader, just like Carol, our daughter, used to do. I don't know whether she still does now. So I read a number of books, especially Arthur Haynes' books. One of them was The Airport, and Frederick Foss's book, The Day of the Jackal. So I started relating these stories to her, but I would relate in such a way that we would stop at that point where things are about to happen. Serious things are about to happen. So I knew that this would guarantee that she would come back the following day or the next 2 days. So that went on for quite some time. After that, I started seeing that things were changing. And as they say, the rest is history now.
Now, this guy was very funny. He would come to our house to borrow salt, yet he had salt. He would just come purposely to see me. And then he would tell us these stories. And it was like this story of another life, where you end where it is very exciting. So I would long to hear the next chapter. Little did I know that he was being Jackal on me. And then slowly, I liked him as a brother, not as a boyfriend. Just like my big brother. Yeah.
Tall and handsome. So at which point then did it turn around, Auntie Rachel?
Now I started liking him as a brother, little by little. But I didn't want him to know, I did want him to know that Kating was now in my heart of, I love this boy. So I wrote to my sister, that big sister of mine, whom I said before. I wrote to her, I have met a young man. He's interested in me. I think I love him. I would want to go ahead in relationship with him. Now, I gave my housemate the letter to post. My housemate was wicked. She opened the letter, she read the letter. Wow, she gave the letter to David. David read, wow, she loves me. So now he knew that me, I'm still pretending, I don't want. He already knew that, Kalas, I have got this girl. So when that happened, my parents strictly no. My mother said, if Rachel wants a dwarf man, let her find a dwarf from Kenya and not from across. So people were not very happy about my moving to Uganda. But then he was transferred to Mombasa. Later on, I was transferred to Mombasa. we just couldn't help it. Oh, there we were in the same building, on the same floor. Our love flourished.
I tell you. Okay. Wow. Your love flourished. What's it been like to be in that space? You're from Kenya, your parents had that, they were not very excited about it, but you have grown and the love has flourished. Just find a way of summarizing for us so many years from that time to now. What's it been like, both the amazing experiences and the challenges?
So along the way, we shift. We are in Mombasa, we are now married. It is a shift to leave Kenya and come to Uganda. My people are, Uganda, is killing people. Had left, but they couldn't understand it. In their mind was, Uganda, they kill people, they throw them in River Nile. We hear a man can load people on a load and boom, dump them in the River Nile. But I had made up my mind. I was like Ruth in the Bible, and I was David. Wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you die, I will die. So we moved when we had Richard, Nancy, Carol, and Paul. But when we were moving, David came first with the 3 children, and I remained with the baby. And I had to come, my children. My children are in Uganda, not that, but the love, we were so bonded. I said, come and buy. Chibi. If it is good. So we came, and eventually my parents started accepting, leave her to go. But they came to love my husband, especially at one time, my father was in a fix, and his home, it had been mortgaged, it was going to go, and he had a big debt. So out of the blue, David offset the whole big debt. 17,000 Kenya shillings. In the 70s, that was a lot of money. Then they said, I think he's good. So I told my mother, he is good, he's a law. Rachael, don't talk about that. So along the line, they came to accept. So I was like set free. So here we are, happily. I still call him my boyfriend. So I'm here with my boyfriend. We are set. We have worked. We have retired. We are in Lira. We are happy in Lira. We even know where we shall be buried, as I've said. Where you'll be buried, I'll be buried. Wow. We have even selected the place where we shall be buried. Wow. So that is love made in East Africa. David and I.
Wow. Yes, Baba.
I think maybe I need to add something. As we were saying at the beginning, it was very uncertain for me whether she was really interested or not. But the first time I really concluded that she was interested was that letter she was talking about. And soon after that, when she came back from Nairobi, I took offer to take her for a dinner in town, and we used to go by these taxis. And for the first time, I saw a dress which I'd never seen. She had, it was a matching dress, matching shoes, which she was not wearing at all. So it was the first time that I saw that one. And then there were also 3 other rivals. There was a guy from South Africa, there was another one from Soroti, there was another one from West Nile, and the one from Soroti was trying to pass through me, who was also interested in the same person. So it was kind of a very interesting, I think she was very marketable at that time. And so many people were interested in her. But when my father did not have any problem with that, because my father traveled, he had been a soldier, he worked, he fought in the Second World War, he was in Kenya, he was in Somalia. So he had traveled a little bit, he was kind of exposed. But my mother was saying, no, you the only person you can marry is somebody from Lano, from our tribe. So the father said, look, a man can choose it from anywhere he wants. So it was kind of difficult. But I kept on telling my mother that this is my choice, and I want to live with this lady. It's not you who's going to live with her. But I told her that, I told mommy that now, in order for my mommy to accept you, you need to come down, you need to carry the water on your head, you need to, if there's need to go firewood. She needs to see that you can do what the girl she thinks should be for me can do.
Yeah.
So she started carrying water in these big sufurias, from the river. She would bring home, she would cook, she would do all those things. But what my mother said about her was whenever we have a function, she's a kind of a very organized person. When there are issues to deal with, she would give orders here, give orders there, things will move. So each time that we have a function, my mother, if she's not there, my mother was very unhappy. But after some time, she started learning language. So now they could communicate. And then after that, things started getting better and better. And after the time my mother died, I think they were just like this because my mother died recently, but they were very close friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
It appears you exercise quite a lot of wisdom around convincing your parents, your very close people to accept each other because your relationship was quite diverse. Let me ask to understand to our viewers, what are some of the things that have helped you to develop a deep and genuine friendship? Because that seems to be part of what has the foundation for the beautiful relationship you carry and have carried over the years.
I think that there are basically maybe 2 or 3 things from my point of view. I think one is our relationship with the Lord. I think our belief that God controls all situations, I think, became very strong because, as I may be able to relate later on when we talk about careers, we went through so many things, but God was able to protect us, to see us through, to give us wisdom and so on. So because we were doing that regularly with the children, we were doing devotions, we were, we made sure we revise many things that we do in church and so on. I think that was one of them because there are certain principles in the Bible that help us to be able to live in a certain way. That was one. I think the other one was communication. We do communicate a lot, even up to now. When I drive from Lira to here, usually I talk to her at least once before I arrive here. In the middle of the place, I say, now we are past the falls, I'm now somewhere here. So that if something happened to me, she would say, at least we communicated by the time he was here. So maybe it's between here and here. So that communication we find has been extremely useful because we are able to almost predict each other very, very easily because we do communicate quite a lot. We have, you've not been to our place, but we have a veranda at home, a balcony, where we make all the major decisions, where we review our day's work every day. So that communication and that, discussing things around us every day, I think has brought us together, has helped us to repel those things that would be toxic, to the family, to us. So it has been extremely useful. So I think communication many times in many homes, it breaks down. But I think as long as we're able to maintain good communication, and as long as we're able to appreciate that God has made the other person differently from me, there are certain things that person likes and dislikes, and therefore I need to do something to move closer. If both of you do that, it seems to me that it is much easier to be able to be able to live a much more predictable life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Auntie Rachel.
As my boyfriend has said, it is communication and communication. We communicate a lot. Right from when we were friends, we opened ourselves to each other completely. I would say completely, and also such that he told me who his girlfriends were or who had been. So later on, when we came to Uganda, if I met them, it was not sort of a shock. And he told me also, he openly told me, my mother might not like you. My mother is very quiet. It's hard to get anything from my mother. So I was prepared. It was not coming as a shock. I knew Mom would not love me. And so I remember when we first went to Lira, I don't know the language. The only thing I was, Kopango, Kope, full stop. Now, how are you going to communicate with your mother-in-law when these things don't work? But since he had prepared me that I would find it hard, my father-in-law accepted me straight away. he could talk Swahili, I would talk Swahili. So it was easy, we would communicate in Swahili. My mother-in-law, but over a period, and I could do what she wanted. Even if I didn't understand, I went to the river carrying the big sufuria. It is called Yual Bear. I carried it and my head became like this. But I came struggling with the water home. My mother-in-law, she is trying. So that, but communication, as I said, we communicate a lot. Yeah.
Have you, in this journey of love and marriage and going through and connecting so well, have you had any tangible challenges, or have there been times when it's been tough and how have you maneuvered your way around it if that has been there?
Oh yeah, of course, in a marriage there will be many challenges, arising from different fronts. As the Lord Jesus told us, in this world there will always be trouble. There's trouble coming up from everywhere. We had lots of challenges from my workplace. We had challenges with my sisters and brothers who were living with us. Because at one stage there were 18 people living in our home.
Wow.
And so there were challenges around those. There were challenges with our other extended relatives. And so there had always been many challenges coming into our lives. But usually the approaches that we make for all those challenges, whether it's illness, whether it is whatever problem it is, we first would pray about them. We normally prayed many times about those challenges that God should open doors for us, should help us, give us wisdom how to deal with those challenges. And then we would try to figure out a way of dealing with each of them in a practical way. And so we would sit, we would talk about them, and then agree on steps we need to take, and then do that. So many times we are able to sort of resolve some of those problems by, as you were saying, by communication, but also by dealing with them head on, so that we are able to kind of go through them. And those challenges never stop. Even today they keep on coming. But when they come, we sit down, we discuss them, we agree, we need to do this way, this one this way, this one this way. So that way, we have found it much easier to sort of manage those challenges. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed, but the challenges can be many. But again, we have trusted the Lord more. We say, look, these challenges, until the Lord calls us, the challenges will always be there. So we can do what we can do, leave the rest to God. So whatever we can do, let us do. Whatever we cannot do, let us leave it to God. So that has been sort of the approach that we have had. And I think it has worked, to some extent. I think it has worked quite well.
Okay. I think what has helped us also, especially when we were so many, 18 people in the house, sisters and brothers-in-law and other relatives. My husband let them know that he was number one. He was the head of the home. In his absence, or even in his presence, I was number two. So they knew Mommy is number two, Baba is number one. If he's away, I'm the one ruling. And they respected me. So they would not, pass behind me. I'm going to the brother, no. And with the relatives coming in, we devised one thing, because the relatives, when they come, especially from the husband's side, they will say, the woman is mean, the woman is that. But what would you do if we want to give them money? If we want to give them, say, like 200, my husband would give me 150. He would remain with 50. When the relative is going, okay, I think this will help you on the way. And I would give the 150. The woman is good. She even gave me more money than the husband, not knowing it was our money. And these small gifts, especially these old ladies at home, we just buy them a sugar, a bar of soap, a headscarf, a kitten. So that is how we manage to do some of the things.
Okay, a lot of wisdom shown by Baba here. I was actually going to ask you the next thing, but you've tackled it a bit. You were a firstborn of a gentleman who had many wives in a polygamous home. And then you had a total of 5-6 children. So the parenting journey, can you tell us a bit about your parenting journey? Maybe we'll start with Auntie Rachael here. She's very dramatic about it. And in there, you can throw in any specific things about our Carol. The class is keen on just hearing a few of those strange things we didn't know about Carol.
Well, I start. You said about
the parenting journey.
The parenting journey. The parenting journey. I think parenting journey is the same, whether it is the old one or the current one or the next one to come. I think there are some principles which will not change. Although the generations change, our generation, we are now in this. But I think the basics, right from the old days of the Bible, old days, they are still the same. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child the way it should go, and when it's grown, it will not depart from that. So we decided to train our children. Now, there are some things we say we shall take our children to school, the best school and so on, but there are basics that are taught at home. You teach good manners to your children. You teach them to say, I'm sorry, thank you, to help others, not to steal, to be clean, etc. Those ones, you will go to do them yourself. You don't say, I will take them to school, they will teach them. At school, as someone said, they teach mathematics, biology, history, chemistry, RE, but these basics at home, we ourselves have got to do them. So we decided that what has got to be taught at home has got to be taught at home. At school, they will be taught what can be taught at school. Because even in our school, we have seen some parents come and say, why aren't you teaching our children this? Or this school, I'm happy because our school is Dara Christian High School. So we still teach those high school children some basics that they missed from home, like praying even before you eat. And some parents have come and said, this Christian thing of yours is good, keep it up. You say, how? My daughter was very rude, she could not help at home, but since she came here, when she came home, we were going to eat. I was going to take food. She returned my hand. Father, we have not prayed. And I was past this. So those basics, we have got to teach them to our children, or we taught them to our children. Anyway, the story is long, he will take over. But coming to Carol, Carol. I remember a few things about Carol. When Carol was still baby, maybe 3, 4 there, Carol, there's a hotel we used to go to in Mombasa called Splendid. We would go on roof every Saturday for evening meal. Carol feared the lift. Carol would, the first time we entered the lift and the child cried and we had to come off the next floor. She was literally shaking. Then we said, we go back, Starkey, meaning I don't want, my goodness. And we had to go on the 6th floor. So I had to go on the stairs with the car, ding, 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 coming back the same. Every time we went there, we took the steps because I don't know that she still has it, but Carol had phobia of the lift. That's one thing I can remember about Carol. The other one is Carol, as you know, I'm Maragori, his Langa. Carol did not know my language, nor the fathers. And we are a Carol, you've got to learn. So if someone asks you, Carol, what is your tribe? She said, I'm English. She said, I'm English. So this Ugandan is a child from Britain. So from that day, we became our English girl. So Carol is our English girl. Papa, what do you remember about Carol?
Okay, I think before that, maybe let me add a few things to what she has said about, parenting generally. I think that what she has said about certain principles remaining constant, I think are true. I think as a family, every family should agree on basic values that they believe in. If the two spouses, the man and the woman, they believe in certain basic principles or values, I think it's a good thing. So if you say, maybe we are people who are going to do as much as possible to tell the truth, we are going to try to be humble, we are going to try to be kind to others, we are going to try to be respectful to others. If you believe in those things, then you also teach the children the importance of those things. But it can only work if they see that you are actually being what you are telling them to do. So if they discover that you maybe you promise to give them something, then you don't give, they say, this mother or this father, he's not telling the truth. He has promised this, he never brought. So it's important that we have values first that we should agree on, and that we should teach them those values, and that we should ourselves be seen to be following those values. Because I think many children, they tend to follow what the parents do rather than what the parents say. So the doing part, I think is very, very important. So once we agree to that and we're doing that, I think that would be very, very helpful. Of course, the environment will be different. Like for now, the environment is quite different. Children are very knowledgeable. Children, most of them in towns like here or cities, they are IT, savvy. They know many things which those of your group did not know at the time you were young. We only had one TV station at that time. Now there are so many TV stations. Social media is there. It used not to be there. So the exposure now is much, much bigger, much wider. And therefore the challenge is much bigger. So those things, those values are being attacked in many respects from wherever the child goes, in the school, wherever the child is. But if the child has got some basic things they heard about, many times they try to compare, okay, this person is telling me this, but I was told like this. So why is he saying this? So it helps them in terms of decision making. I think that is kind of very, 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 very helpful if we can try to do that, to be able to manage the current environment, which is really quite difficult. I think also the bonding with them is also important. We made sure, for example, that as you are saying, that especially in the primary school days, we looked at their books all the time. Every day we had time in the evenings to look at their books, even to do homework with them. Sometimes, depending on the class, we'll divide. Maybe we'll look at maybe SST and maybe science, or we look at maths, maybe English for each of them. I remember at one stage, Paul had issues with mathematics, and I was dealing with mathematics with him. There's a program on UTB that the children used to like. It was a German-based kind of program.
Oh, good times.
Yes, good times. So now when I'm with him, the others are in the sitting room, they're laughing. So he's not even hearing what I'm saying completely. So we struck a deal. So we said, now, when this program comes, you'll go and watch the program. But as soon as they finish, you will come back here so that we continue with what we are doing. And I think it kind of worked in that sense. So that would help us to be able to know the weaknesses, the strength, and maybe even talking about their friends in the school and the teachers who are teaching them, what they believe in. But many times I argued with Rudy, for example. She would say, this is what the teachers taught about tax, in the class. Now, sitting in the Bank of Uganda, I know that that's not correct. That is wrong. So I said, this is not the correct position on this one. I said, okay, for you, it may not be the correct, but when the teacher asked, this would be my answer. So I said, I want you to know that there are certain things that the teacher may teach you which may not be correct. I said, okay, for me, I will just deal with what the teachers are taught, not what you're telling. What teacher said. And so that was some kind of a challenge. Actually, one time I also had a sitting with some two teachers from Uganda Primary School about this. And they kind of admitted that they were not using the latest kind of books, maybe to get the latest piece of information. So I think those are important, but those do not make sure that the challenges that the children have will go away. But for me as a parent, if I've done my best, even if the child doesn't listen to me, doesn't care, doesn't take it, I will still feel satisfied that I did my best. And that the child has no opportunity to say that my father or my mother did not tell me this. That will not be his or her case. So I think this is an approach that I think has been kind of very helpful. Now to go to Karen. Karen has been sort of one of our finest children. When she was young, you could not find any kind of fault. You give her work, you do this. You don't find any issue to quarrel with, to disagree with. Most times she was just doing things okay. Then when she went to Makerere, then she comes one time with a long nail, the nail, I think it was this. and the nail was, I think, maybe almost 2 inches.
No, I thought that was just love.
I remember it.
So I decided that we should hold a high-level conference on this nail thing. So we sat in the room down there. It was this house. So we talked and talked. At the end of it, God told me that, this is my body, this is my nail, it's not yours, not your nail. So I'm not going to cut it, it's my nail. So I told her that, okay, you are still under my house. You're still under our house and our roof. So you need to decide whether to continue staying here or look for some other place if you want to keep this nail. But I think when she went back, she didn't cut it from here. She cut it, I think, from Africa, or when she went back to university. So that is one interesting thing that but I also realized that children, they can be behaving in a certain way, and you think that either they are very good or they are very bad. But there are certain things in them which you may not have seen. So when they got married, and Joseph told me that you don't know much about your daughter. I agree with him. I said I don't know much about Carol because of that nail thing. I think that's one thing that I can remember about Carol.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that nail thing and follow it up quite keenly.
Okay.
We're about to go into a very short break.
Yes.
Just then we'll flip the conversation to a completely different area because we are 1 hour into our conversation already. Time does fly.
Yeah.
But just very briefly, in just a minute or two, and I really mean a minute or two each, the grandparenting journey. I mean, we are your children at this level. You have raised us, and I remember that Auntie Rachael being very, very present, being the fun one. But Baba, you are really a present father, not just for the direct children themselves, but even to somebody like me on that side. But what's it been like to be a grandparent, and what advice do you give to a parent now who is a parent of your grandchildren now? In a minute or two.
Yeah, it is. I think being a grandparent is a blessing. It's quite a big blessing because when you see your grandchildren, you are. I think it is something that we never change. We tend to be softer on the grandchildren, and many grandchildren I've seen when they come to us, they are more free. They have rules in their homes, but once they're with us, the rules break down. There are no rules. I remember Richard's children. Each time they came, the parents were telling them not to watch certain TV programs. So when others put on in Lira, they ran to me. They said, "Now they're watching this program. It's not good. They're watching that program. Switch it off." Now that's what the father told them. He said, "No, let them watch here. We are." So they see that things are different. But generally speaking, I think because we have not had much time with them, each time they come, I think we enjoy the company of each other quite a lot, and we try to encourage them. To listen to their parents, to be able to follow what their parents are telling them, so that they have, they have a better growth path, a better development path. So that's what we have been doing.
We have 8 grandchildren, all of them very loving. I had said if I have a grandchild, I would discipline them, but they are sweet. They are so sweet. You just find you are loving them. And I try to be harsh with Keiko, that is Nancy's daughter, because she had come during COVID, was staying with them and we were doing, but somehow your heart breaks and you just find you are loving them. I thank God because their parents are also doing their best. They are taking them to church, which was passed on to us and which was passed on to our children, and which they are doing to their children. So it is just our prayer that our grandchildren will continue to grow the way they are doing. Because the parents, we believe, are doing a fantastic job of all the 8.
Just one small thing that just came into my mind. Having many children, I mean, not just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
and then the grandchildren are 8. How have you guarded yourself against seeming like you have a favorite child or the one who is not the favorite child? What's that situation been like for you?
All our children have been favorite.
You know, it is actually one of my nephews. One time with his wife, they were at home, and his wife asked me, said, you know, of all these children of yours, who is your most favorite child? So I said, I don't have a favorite child. You know, we treat them. I said, no, you know, always somebody, you know, everybody has their favorite children. So I just told her that, you know, each of these children, they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. Yeah, and so what we have been trying to do is to, if we think there's a weakness somewhere, we try to help them maybe dealing with that weakness, because many times we have not had much time, but many times I would go with her to Ginger or some place or Entebbe to deal with the issue of children, and with them an agenda, you know, this one, and we record the minutes on this child. This is where we see there's a problem. This is what we need to take action on. On Carol, it is this number 1, number 2, number 3. On Richard, is this and this and that. On this one, this and that and that. You do this, I do this.
Wow.
And by which time, you know, maybe in 1 month, 2 months. So we would do that, and we go on a Friday evening and come back maybe on Sunday morning. So we are doing that regularly. And I think it was very helpful because we could sort of look at it in more detail and see what we think are the issues and how we can help them. So we thought that was a good thing, but it has not. We have not. You know, it is maybe sometimes the punishment when they're young. Some were punished more maybe than others, but the punishments were related to the issue that they were involved in more than maybe saying you love this one more than the other one. Because it is always a kind of a hard thing. Once you demonstrate that you love one more than the other, it brings differences, it brings many issues and so on, and therefore it is good to avoid it as best as one can.
Okay. But our children, I think, enjoyed. We took them to outings. We went to Mombasa, we went to Nairobi, we went to Zimbabwe. Ginger, we used to go to Sunset. So we bonded with them, they bonded with each other. It was good. And not only with our children, I remember when we went to Mombasa, we went with 9 children, and people are confused. This woman with 9 children, and you know, I would say these ones are twins. But it was good, and I think our children, they have enjoyed.
Wow.
If they have not enjoyed it, they will tell us.
Okay.
Yeah.
That bit, Baba, what you said about sitting down and having an agenda
Yes.
for every child and planning it through so intricately. Was that part of your accounting background, or this was the secretarial bit from? Because that's so detailed and so deliberate. I'm completely amazed by that.
You know, there is something which now she has learned from me, something I call CPA.
Critical path analysis.
This was a lot from the accounting, you know, main accounting theories, in terms of analyzing a particular situation so that you avoid that problem maybe later. Because today in business, for example, some people put money in something, the money gets lost, it's sunk money, but they keep on thinking about the money, but the money is already gone. So in accounts, we say this is sunk, forget about it, start something fresh. So that I think was part of the kind of the accounting training, so that you can follow up the matter.
Okay. So we are going to have a very, very short, brief break just to take some water. And in here, Sophia wanted to tell us about the next Pearls of Wisdom and whom we are going to be hosting. Sophia, you're welcome to do that for us now before we dig into the next session.
Okay, thank you very much, Joy. I'm absolutely loving this session. It's amazing, Mr. and Mrs. Opiokello. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm actually on my own and not with our year groups to have a good laugh about the stories. So thank you very much. Very animated, and we're picking up lots of things, including the critical path analysis as applied to. So that's got to be the winner for me now, but many as well. So introducing our next guest, who we usually do this at the halfway point of our sessions. And usually the guests are present to attend and we see them. But this time around, we're doing it a slightly different way. And we will be introducing our next guest right now. And here you go, wait for it. It is Mrs. Maria Chiwanuka. So Mrs. Maria Chiwanuka is going to be our next guest next month on the 18th of June. If the dates change, we will notify you, we'll let you know, but the 18th of June is when we have confirmed it for. And Maria Chiwanuka is currently the board chair of Airtel Mobile Commerce Uganda. She, as we know, has been the former Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in the early 2010 decade, 2011 to about 2015. She's an accomplished development finance expert. She's worked at the World Bank for over 10 years as an economist and financial analyst, responsible mostly for East Asia and Southern African regions. And she has established and previously served as managing director of Radio 1, Radio 2 Uganda. And in addition, she has held non-executive director roles at the Aga Khan Foundation, Nabagereka Development Trust, Nkumba University, Uganda Development Bank, and Standard Chartered. And we know that she's married to Mr. Mohan Chiwanuka and is a mother of 3 young men. So there's a lot to pick from this, and she is a Gayaza old girl, definitely. So next month on the 18th of June, we will be having a chat with Mrs. Maria Chiwanuka. If you have anything that you'd like to have us ask her during the discussion, please get in touch with us with those questions, and we will table them for that session. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you very much, Joy. Please do carry on. Don't want to waste time with Mr. and Mrs. Opiokello.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Sophia. So welcome back, everybody. We are now going to look a bit deeper into what was the gist, or what we thought was the pearl of the wisdom for today, which is going to be around the investment, retirement planning, and a bit of how somebody should be involved in the business world and in their career. And you mentioned the CPA bit, which is good. So Baba, we'll start with you on this one. You are a former deputy governor of the Bank of Uganda. What was it like to work in that office, high pressure environment, and everything that comes with it? Yes.
Thank you very much. Joy, I think when you reach an office like that, people tend to remember that office more than any others you have gone through. And yet there could have been pressures even in those others, quite a lot. Indeed, at those kind of high levels, there are lots of pressures of things that do come, to your desk, things that you need to make decisions on. And many times they're very, very tough. Many times you wonder what you need to do, especially if they are not the right things, or if the forces behind them are not following them up in the right way. So sometimes they become very, very hard. And therefore, the time that I spent as deputy governor, which was about 5 years and maybe some 2-3 months, some of the periods I think were excellent, were good. I didn't have a lot of pressures, but some of the times had tremendous pressures in carrying out the work that needed to be carried out. But before I go to the pressures, I think many people who work in central banks around the world, many of them rarely leave the central bank because the central bank has got many aspects that I think are attractive. Usually the pay is good, the benefits are good worldwide. Usually there are many new things that we learn. You meet many new people all the time. New issues are being thought about all the time in regards to the different sectors of the economy and so on. And so it's something that sort of remains exciting quite a lot in what people do. But to come back to the pressures, I would probably just give a few examples to demonstrate the extent of the pressure that sometimes I went through. There was a time a general in the army called me and wanted some money urgently, and he said this money was required for security operations. So I told the general that he knew the process that he needed to follow, the policies that he needed to follow, because as government, we all sat with the prime minister then, at that time it was the late Professor Apollo Sibambi, we had all agreed on processes for getting money normally, for getting in an emergency. All those were documented, they were formalized, but this one wanted to cut corners. So he said, this business is very urgent, we need the money like now. So I told him that we can't give you the money now because we'll be breaking the process. So he was not happy with me. So I sort of told him that when him and the others took over government, they came because they wanted to reestablish order in the country. And to a great extent, they had done that. So that order needed to continue being made better and better. And one of the issues, is financial management. So this needed to be made better and better. In my view, what we agreed was the best and what we should do. So he said, I was playing with security. Security is a big issue. I needed to act quickly. And so he then decided on intimidation. So he told me that he knew, or that they knew me a lot. They knew from my home in Meta and Lira, they knew all the neighbors. They knew where I'd gone to school. They knew where I'm living in Muyenga. They knew when I leave home to go to work, when I come back from work, which routes I take from Muyenga to go to office. Wow. They knew that I would not go to bars in the evening. So they knew a lot about me.
Where the children go to school.
Where the children go to school,
where
we pray. They knew all the way we pray and so on. So my response was that I was very happy with that knowledge because I was a senior government official. And if they didn't know that, I would be worried. Because if somebody's a senior government official as deputy governor, the government needed to protect that person. And the only way that the government can protect that person is to know as much detail as possible. So I think he was unhappy with me. He then banged the phone down, but he was also known to be a bit a hard person. So as soon after that, I called Bami. I said, today, I've had some conversations. They're not good conversations. So if something happened to me, you better know this has happened because in this kind of situation, things can quickly deteriorate. So that was kind of worrying. But before that, I also had another one with the former government of Lutwa, the late Lutwa. I was actually arrested twice when Lutwa was in power. The first time I was arrested with 3 other senior people, and it was the Inspector General Police who came to Bank of Uganda to arrest us. So we went to the office of the president at that time. We were accused that, especially me, because I was in charge of foreign exchange, that we are sending money to Obote, lots of money to Obote. And so they needed to know why we are sending money to Obote. And so we were taken there. We stayed there from about 9 o'clock up to about maybe 1. And sometimes when you're in trouble, even those who are around in the building, you talk to them, everybody distances themselves from you. So you know that things are serious. Nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to share with you anything. But we were saved, I think, the 3 of us by the late Abraham engineer. What was his name? I forget the name now. It was Prime Minister. I think it was Prime Minister at that time. He came in, and then when he came in, he then talked to the president. He said, this sort of thing needs to be investigated. We need to call in the CID. We need to call in this one. They need to investigate it. So once they're investigated, if they are at fault, we take them to court. The court will charge them. Then they will go to jail and things like that. So as soon as he was advised, he released us. We then left. Then it didn't take long. I was again asked to go back there. This time I went alone. One of his principal aides called me, said, the president has been unhappy with you. We don't know what's happening this time. So when I went there, it was around 8:30. We didn't have mobile phones in those days, so it was difficult to kind of communicate. So I went there. So I was taken straight to him. So he asked me why I had refused to give his company money, foreign exchange. And so I said it was not true that we had refused to give foreign to his company. I had advised his young guys who had come that now the president is now the president. He did not need to be seen to be doing business. If the documents were signed by him and they came out in the papers and so on, it would be embarrassing. So now they needed to go and advise him to appoint either one of them or somebody else to be now the executor of the plans of the company. But they went and told him that I refused to give them money. So he had requested them to come. So when I told him, he said, okay, you call those boys. So when they came in, so he told them to lie down. So he said, you tell me what you told me about Mr. Opiokello. So of course, since I was there now, they could not veer the story. So now they told me what the truth was. So he got them came, he got some other person to come and came. So then they were led away. So he said, today I was going to take you to Lira. I was going, so after that, you will not know what would happen. And yet this seemed to be a relatively easy thing. But some of those were some of the risks that one would go through, especially if some of the requirements to do some of the work was not following the regular channels, the proper channels and so on. And there were a number of others, but I'm just giving this to, as an example, that those ones who are there, these kind of things, they go through all the time. Many times they go through. And then there are many meetings that take place. There are pressures from international organizations. And many times you have to decide, in terms of policy, in terms of direction, where you as an organization is going to go and how you're going to support that. You need a lot of skilled people to support you. If you don't have skilled people, it can be quite a big issue. So the pressures are there all the time. The pressures are very many. Finally, one time we were told, I was still the chief accountant of the bank, we were required to present what was called the statement of affairs to the IMF. And if we didn't do that, the entire country would not get money from Uganda. So it was as chief accountant and the governor, we were mostly the two people who are very much concerned about this. So I used to work very late, work late, come maybe at 10, sometimes come with work. So you come with work at home, then Madam says, Mr. Opiokello. And each time she called me Mr. Opiokello, I knew things are hard. Said, Mr. Opiokello, welcome back from work. I want to know, are you married to Bank of Uganda or are you married to me? Is Bank of Uganda your children or these children are your children? This was around 10 something. I still had work to do because I needed to report the following day. So she told me that, you can work in the Bank of Uganda up to midnight, but once you come here, you are for us. So leave everything in the Bank of Uganda and come back home here for us. So I decided that day that that's what I would do. And from that day, I never came with work from Bank of Uganda home because of what she did.
I told him I would ban it.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are some of the kind of pressures that sort of extreme pressures, but the work pressure itself is there because there are many meetings, there are many decisions to make, policy issues to decide on, and some of them you don't have all the information. Some of them, the forces behind them, that these forces are stronger than you. And therefore, you need to find ways of either delaying them or ways of trying to find other forces that can deal with those forces. So it was always very, very, very challenging. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, the thing is, there is so much to ask, and yet the time is limited. Yes. So I'm going to dwell now on the whole investment planning, retirement planning. You seem to have planned very well, and this is something I've admired about you as a couple, but particularly about Baba, because I know from an experience years ago that you had shared that you started very early to plan for your retirement, to plan for what you would do and how you'd be relevant in these times, which you're doing now. And here you are, you run 2 schools in the north of Uganda. I know you sit on many, or not many, but a number of boards as board chair. So take us through your whole retirement planning journey, and down to intricacies around investing and what you've done. I'll pick bits there and bring them out specifically, but you can start the conversation on that.
Okay, on retirement, in this country, we know that when we had, I think, the liberalization policy of government, many people in government lost their jobs. There were a lot of redundancies, and many of them were not prepared for those redundancies. Many of them did not have homes. Children would be distributed to different homes because they didn't have their own home. I think that was a big lesson for many of us. I was still a relatively young person when I joined Bank of Uganda. I joined Bank of Uganda as a deputy director at 32 years of age. And indeed, I think I made history there. I think I was the youngest deputy director at that point, because there was an unwritten rule that to become a director or a deputy director, you needed to be 40 before you can be appointed one. But because they didn't have any qualified accountant, and I happened to be one of those, I think that's what helped me. But what I could see was that if people are not prepared, even in their thinking, psychologically, leave alone the financial aspects and so on, life can be very hard for them. And I'd seen a number of staff who had left Bank of Uganda without proper preparation, and many of them did not live for long, because they were, after leaving the bank, they were living a certain lifestyle, and that lifestyle completely disappeared. They were having a lot of pressure in the office, then suddenly there was no pressure. So I decided that with her that we needed to do something. But because we could see that we had, myself and some of our friends were trying to work on our old school now college to try to revamp many things there when I had come back from Kenya. But many politicians were saying I was doing that because I wanted to become a politician. And therefore there were a lot of controversies. So I decided that perhaps if we can do our own school, maybe it will be better. So we decided on that. I think as far back as maybe the early 90s. So we started looking for land, to start buying the land. So I think we started buying land maybe around 98, 99 there, incrementally, after deciding that we needed to start a school, because the school seemed to be an institution where you could have a lot of influence on the children. The children are still young. If you talk to them, you tell them about all this, perhaps your influence would be able to help them to be better people. So we started that at that point. So we started thinking about that and what needed to be done, how the things needed to work out. But then that also meant that we needed to start putting aside some money. So even as we are thinking about the school, as we are thinking about what needed to be done, we also now needed to start planning for the money. Now on the money, fortunately for us, perhaps maybe because my mother also talked to me about savings, we actually started the savings even before we got married. When we were still friends, we decided that we would open a joint account, which was kind of difficult, but somehow we decided to open a joint account. So we said, I'll have my account, she would have ours, then we have one which is joint. And we started putting there 50 shillings each. She put 50 or 50 per month. We didn't have an objective, we just said, let us have some sort of savings. But as this kept on growing, we then decided that education would be important, like our father told us, so we needed to have some money aside so that we can use that money for education of children. But the money grew up, and when we came back, especially, she worked for Spear Motors, and at that time she was being paid in dollars. Actually, before she went to Spear Motors, she was earning more than me in the Bank of Uganda. She was working for Rugasira. Yeah. Rugasira was paying her more than I was being paid in the Bank of Uganda. Wow. So we had some extra money, so we started to put that money in the savings account, and that kind of helped us to begin to manage the number of obligations that we felt we had. So in my mind, the most important thing was there were maybe 2-3 things. One, you needed to do something once you have left your formal work. If you just sit down, you are not doing anything where you think, where you need to make judgments on various things. Your mind can deteriorate very, very quickly. So if you have been in a high pressure point, you needed to go slowly, graduate, go slowly to a point where perhaps that kind of situation would now disappear. But if it came suddenly, I think it can impact on you negatively. So that is one thing. So for us, the schools would do that. Once we have the schools, it would help us with, see how it is being manage it, have many people there, work with them and so on. So that would help us in that regard. But we also knew that you needed to have money to sort of start it, but also money to live on, because we still had obligations for a number of children, so we needed to have that money. So we also said, let us start to put money aside for this kind of thing. So for a long time, we started putting money aside without kind of a clear picture that this money is going for X, for Y, for Z, apart from schools, apart from educating children, and those ones we were sponsoring. But as time went on, we then started to sort of begin to think of allocating. Maybe we can put this money for this project, maybe this money for this project, maybe this money for this project. And so we started sort of doing that. And once you start doing it, it is part of you, it becomes much easier. And again, this is where discipline is necessary. If you don't have discipline, something comes, in your mind, you can remove the money and use it, and that will not be helpful. So we did that for quite a long time. But that also meant that we needed to be doing investments. But because in the central bank, I was in charge of foreign exchange for a long time, and we're doing investment for the entire country. So I had some reasonably good idea what needed to be done on investments, what kind of money you can hold for a long time, what kind of money you can hold for a short time, and which kind of market you can go to, what are the pitfalls, what are the risks, and so on. So that was relatively clear to me. So I said to myself, having learned this from what I'm doing, why don't I use it for myself as well? So I started picking some of them from what we are doing in the bank, also to bring down what we are doing for the family. So when it comes to investment, I think the most important thing is first you need to have some savings, because you can't invest without having saved something. Secondly, it is necessary to know fairly well where you want to invest the money. Because many times people who work in the financial sector will come and tell us, you can go to a unit trust, you can go to this, you can go to this. But we don't ask, how does it work? What are the risks? What are the issues? So if you don't know clearly what the issues are, what the risks are, my advice would be not to go for it. Once the risks are clear to you, it is much easier, because you then know that maybe I can lose so much, or I can lose the whole money, or this is what this kind of arrangement can do for me. So it is important to understand whatever investment instrument you want to choose. And usually there are quite a few of them in the market, in the economy. So that is very important. The other one is to understand that risk and return, they go together. The higher the risk, probably the higher the return, the higher the risk. If the return is quite high, usually the risk is also very high. If the return is low, usually the risk is not very high. So depending on where you want to play and why you want to play there, I think visiting this issue of risk and understanding the risk will be very, very key, will be very, very important. But because many people don't understand it well, they rely on advisors. So for advisors, if an advisor can sit with one and really clarify those, on a one-to-one basis, I think it will be very, very helpful. So that if there is a list of instruments that you want to go to, for each of them, you can understand the risks, the issues that are around it. It makes it much clearer. And therefore, making the choice of which one you should go for will be quite clear to us. For us, we have tended very much to, we kind of low risk people. So we have invested very much in the government treasuries, government bonds, government treasury bills, because we know that if government reaches a level where it is bankrupt, maybe that's where they will not be able to pay the money because they borrowed the money. But we know that that is very unlikely, maybe in the near future. And therefore, the risk in buying government securities is usually much lower, because Bank of Uganda is the one that does it on behalf of government. And Bank of Uganda wants to keep its reputation in that area. So if there's a problem with the government, Bank of Uganda will pay and then deal with the government on how they should get the money from the government. So we have tended to do that because we find that, although the return is not very high, but we find that in terms of risk, because we are not there actively to manage on a daily basis, so we can't see what's in the market, what's going on in different parts and so on. So we said, okay, let us go for this. It is kind of passive, but it's better for us, for our purposes. We can even calculate what returns are going to be there in the next 1 year, in the next 2 years, and see how to adjust, how to make adjustments here, how to make adjustments there. So the key thing, I think, is that we need to understand, first we need to have the money, then we need to understand what kind of instruments we want to put that money in. Once we understand it better, it is much easier. Then we need to understand the risk associated with each instrument. and the return associated with each risk. If you understand those 2-3 things, I think our investment generally, normally would, I think would go in the right direction. If you don't understand, the blames usually go to many people. This one cheated me, this one cheated me, this one did not tell me the truth, and so on. So understanding, in my view, is most important before we make a commitment. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Baba. I'm going to come back to Auntie Rachel, but before that, what I pick, and I'm just saying this to emphasize, is that you started early.
Yes.
So you're talking about low risk, low return, but you started significantly early. When we're talking about 1998, that is how many years ago? 30 years ago, thereabouts, which is so you had the beauty and the opportunity of stretching it across all these years, and definitely it's compounded and it has grown. There is something that I know personally, and I've eaten Carol about it because she didn't seem to have done it on the group that we were on. You started to invest in the treasuries, particularly for university education for the children.
Yes.
And you can just tell us briefly about that, then we'll bring in Auntie Rachel on this one.
Okay, for the children, we sort of knew roughly what the cost would be for university education in terms of if they were being educated here or even going abroad. So we then needed to work in such a way that whatever we are putting in the treasury bills, at that point, we'll be able to generate enough money to be able to pay for university education, as on the assumption that things like inflation and so on will not have erased the benefit of the interest that we are getting from the treasury bills. Now, the treasury bills, there are certain points in time, usually when there is inflation like we're beginning to experience now, the rates of treasury bills will go up. And many times when you buy treasury bills around that time when the rates are going up, you tend to get a better return because before the government at Bank of Uganda clams on inflation to bring it down so that the rate can come down. So many times who are experts in this, they watch very closely the inflation trends. How is the inflation going? So there are times when the rates were very high. I remember there was a time we were investing, I think, at 22, 23%.
22%.
Yeah, 32%. So some of those, so you need to be somebody who watches the market, who knows how the market is going. And therefore you can sort of do that, because now you know that in the next 2 years we shall have, this one is going to university, this one going to university. So we need to have so much money to be able to fund that. And therefore you need to start now, maybe 3 years from now, or maybe 4 years from now, so that by that time, that money is available.
It has accumulated.
Accumulated, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the things which I'm picking from you on this one, you started early.
Yeah.
Okay. Initially, firstly, you were very deliberate about it. Then you started early. Yeah. You've been consistent at it, regardless of the times, and then you've equipped yourself to know and to understand how it runs, and to understand the related risks. Yeah. Okay, so Auntie Rachel, what is your experience in all of this? You were kept updated, your mind was being sought to give wisdom on all fronts. What was your experience?
Well, my experience in this, first of all, I didn't understand these things of treasury bills and so on. But thank God I'm married to an accountant. Although I told someone in my next life, I will not get married to an accountant. Because these guys, they want to account for everything. You had this money, how did you use it? And I remember, okay, I went to Nakawa market, I bought this, I bought this, I bought this. But I try to give it, the money is not adding up. Wow. Then I remember, okay, I bought Kavera. Okay, the boy who made the fish. Okay, the one who carried it to the car. So accountability and accounts is just not me. But God knew better that he would help me. So he helped me and would explain to me, we are doing this because of A, B, C, D. So I said, I will not invest this money in treasuries and so on. Mr. Opiokello, give me the money. Let us get land. Let us plant trees.
Wow.
So I said, let us invest in trees, because the Bible says a wise man lives some wealth to his children's children. And wow, that's a long time. So I said, we would go trees. And boy, was this a story? Tell us about our trees.
This is exceptional. When she told me about trees, I told her, what's wrong with you? Because the idea of investing in trees was just out of the way for me. But she kept on saying that, trees, I think trees are good for the future. They may stay long without any returns, but they will be good returns. But I kept on telling her that this is not something we're going to be involved in. So one time, she told me that there was some seminar that was going to be held at Sheraton about tree planting, about forestry management and so on. So she asked me, said, I'm just asking you kindly to attend this. So because she's my wife, I said, okay, so I got 2 days leave from the bank and I went to attend this. And this was being facilitated by some South African forestry people. And when I attended that seminar, my thinking about trees completely changed. It was a 360-degree change. And from that point, now by the time that I was agreeing, she had already talked to National Forestry Authority. She had already got some sort of allocation of land in their forestry place in Lira. She had talked to the people who are responsible for this. So in a way, she had already prepared the background. So the moment I finished, she had gone to the office of the executive director in Nakawa there. So they prepared a contract. So when they prepared a contract, and the contract was in my name, she had given my name as the person who was going to be able to do this. So I said, yeah, but this thing we normally do together in both names. I said, for them, they said, since you are from Kenya, they will not allow you to lease land, government land here. So you better just let your husband be the person whose name is going to appear there. So we were initially allocated 100 hectares of land to plant these trees, although eventually we ended up planting 83.1 hectares. But I think from that time, I think my interest in trees are probably bigger than hers now. For what I see, but it was a good thing that she insisted for a long time. And I think it's something that is going to help not only the two of us, but I think even these carols and so on. I think it will still help them as well. Yeah.
On that note, I want to thank him for allowing me, because a man would say, what is this woman talking about, and so on. But I thank God that he was able to listen to me and to allow. And now our trees, we are going to start harvesting. And I think it will be. That was my investment. Yeah.
Wow. So now when you look at yourselves and how far you've come with these investments and how it's keeping you busy. Baba, you had said earlier before we came on call, comparing yourself to some of your colleagues who have been in retirement and how life is happening to them.
Yeah.
Share with us that bit of your story now.
Yeah, I think that anyone who retires from formal employment, first of all, today, I think it's difficult to retire completely. Retirement really means leaving one form of job, maybe doing something else. But I think it's important not only from a psychological point of view, to have something in mind that one can do. Because if you have lived in a high pressure environment where you have to think a lot, where you have to read many documents, where you have to make big decisions that affect many lives, suddenly that's not there. It is very difficult for the mind and the brain to settle quickly. And therefore, it is important that some sort of activity is available for one to be able to do so that one can gradually come down, that pressure can gradually come down. So it is important that that happens, because I've seen many of my colleagues, sometimes when I meet them, we have a clinic in the bank for those who are retired. So we meet once in a while there when we are not feeling well. Some of them who are much younger than me, but they now look much older. When you see them, they look much, much older. And I think because the management of the pressures from when they left the office up to now, I think was a bit difficult. As an example, there was one colleague who retired, but because this colleague had not prepared, he left work, I think like Friday. Then for the next 1 week, from Monday the following week up to Friday, I have talked about this when I was talking on behalf of a CPA conference. This guy would dress up and drive his car and park in front of Bank of Uganda in a suit and so on, and read papers, buy newspapers, read until about 11, 12, then he would drive off to go back. And you wonder, why was he doing it? For 1 week, 5 days, Monday up to Friday. In my mind, because he really didn't have anything else that he could do, he was still thinking about what needed to be done. And once you do that, it is very difficult to manage one's life, because there are always people outside there who are waiting, if you've got some little money here and there, to grab that money. So when you're desperate, you don't think carefully, you don't think in an orderly way, and many of them actually lost their money, whatever gratuities they got, whatever sort of big lump sum they got, and their situations worsened, because now they needed to depend either on their children or some other people, and therefore I think this becomes a problem. So I think thinking early enough about what to do, and also trying to invest money so that you can have some, however little it is, some income coming up all the time to help you to run your life, and maybe with your spouse. I think those two things are quite important, because I have seen practically many of my colleagues have really suffered because this thinking was not in them. So when they left, things were really hard for them. And there are some, I remember there was a time I was looking for someone in the Makere Chivolo area, and I met one, and I could not believe that, he was a senior person. He was a director actually in the Bank of Uganda. He was really in bad shape, because again, he had not sort of planned for that sort of thing. So I think it is important that people do plan for this, so that they can manage their life as they go along. Yeah.
What I'm picking from you is that we should have started planning for our retirement, even us at this level, or the people younger than us, we should have started planning yesterday. But now that yesterday is past, it is of urgent need to think through, plan, and contemplate this retirement thing at this point, 30, 40 years way in advance. So we can't thank you enough. What are your views on that particular subject, Auntie Rachel?
There was someone, is he called Kimboa? I had
PK, yeah.
He said, start planning about retirement as soon as you get a job. Don't wait, I'm going to work for so many years, then I will start thinking about. So the sooner you start thinking about retirement, the better. I'm starting, I would say, like, there are seasons, yeah? So you will not be in one season forever. This season will change, you will come to this season and you will go on. So don't think, when I reach that season is when I will do A, B, C, D. So the sooner you start, the better. Wow. It will help you. So we have told our children, even Rudy now, our last one, we told her, Rudy, start thinking about retirement. Then she just started working. Retirement? Yes. And for us now who are retired, people said, they are retired. We are not retired. We have just, it's like if you have a car, then the tires get old, you put on other tires. So which means you have retired the car. It can still move and do a lot. So we have just changed the tires and we are moving. And as long as God gives us life and strength, we are enjoying retirement. It can be sweet if you prepare for it. But if you're not prepared, wow, I think it can be very hard.
Wow. Okay, so
I think that maybe just to add, Joy, I think many of us in this country, we really like, to read many documents, read books and so on. The people who retire and they're not doing any work, or they're not doing some kind of reading, I think the brain or the mind tends to shrink much faster. Because I found that since I retired, I have sat on actually many boards, both NGOs, private companies, and so on. And those boards often they require, especially if they're regulated, they require a lot of thinking, a lot of reading, a lot of finding information in this area, in that area. And as you do so, as you discuss with others outside that environment, your knowledge, what you the knowledge that you had tends to expand, tends to grow, even if you are growing older, but you can speak to many people reasonably well because your knowledge has not completely died. So that way it keeps you abreast, it keeps you going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so two things which I would like us to just give a bit of time even as we close. You've referred to the scriptures a lot, and I love the scriptures myself. There's a scripture where David speaks in the Psalms, and he mentions something to the effect that he will bear fruit even in his old age, which is very powerful. And many people usually know that curve to be that, you go up and then in your old age you sink.
Yes.
But for you, it seems like you're even going up. You've not even stalled at a plateau sort of thing, but you're going up even higher. But the other thing which is coming out from your interview, which is something I would like for you to expound a little even as we plan to close, regards the fact that you're having an influence on a wider community. Your children now have grown, they have their own children, you have grandchildren, your grandparents, but you're having impact on the school environment where you are, the children themselves, their parents, and the whole Lira community as a whole, as well as you've mentioned serving on different boards and what that impact has on others as well. So just throw some light on your relevance is not just for yourselves or your immediate family, but for a wider and much bigger community.
Yeah, I think that normally when we feel that we are relevant to a number of groups, a number of different people, I think we feel more satisfaction because many times people tend to think about money most of the time, but I think money also has got limits. But I think if you can see that you have some influence in a particular area, for example, like we have now run the school, the secondary school for the last, now coming to about 19 years.
Wow.
Now there are a number of graduates, people who have come from the school. We had our first PhD guy who just qualified, I think 2 years ago.
Wow.
And this guy, he was one of the pioneers in the school, and he competed for a scholarship, publicly Belgian government scholarship, and only 2 of them won the scholarship to develop the culture, and he went there and did a PhD there, and is now, I think, head of a department in Gulu University. Now, people like that, when they come back, we talk to them a lot, and we ask them to be sharing their experience with other young people. And even those ones who left school who are now sometimes here, sometimes I meet some of them maybe working in different places. So you feel some satisfaction that whatever little influence you had, something has been left with these children. So in our school, every Sunday when we are available at school, we always have a Sunday service. So normally when we are there, we always tell them something. Before the preacher comes, we always tell them something practical about life. And many times we get the feeling that they look forward to this thing because they hear something outside the classroom, things which are on biology or chemistry, but practical things that are happening outside there. And therefore, we feel good that this is happening. This is sort of like a family. One time we had one of our pastors died, and I think more than 50 or 60 of them went to attend the funeral service of this pastor. And when I was there with Mommy as well. So when the school was called, when we were called to speak, all of them came to join us. And they had collected, I think these were people who had worked for 2 years, 3 years, something like 750,000 shillings, which for people who are earning 200, 300, 400,000 shillings, is a lot of money. But when you see that, and when you talk to them, you feel that there is something that rubbed on them from us. You can't help feeling satisfied. And the same thing flows through these other places that we have been to, so that the experience that you had in your working life, you're still giving to somebody, and that somebody may be able to run with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you, Rachel?
I think I enjoyed my childhood. I have enjoyed my marriage. I'm enjoying old age. It's very exciting. Running the schools and the impact, people say, you people, thank you for being in the schools. Thank you for what you are doing for our community. Our school, we charge very little fee because we know that people in the village struggle. So actually we are giving service. It's not because we are getting money, because when, like now, if you tell people that we are charging 600 and the children are boarding, yes, how do you feed them? How do you pay the teachers? But I think it's a service we need to give. And it has impacted the community. When we started there, now if you come, the place has changed. People have built, people have bought land around there. For me personally, you know, I worked with Spear Motors, I was getting a lot of money. When I left to go to Ambassadors of Hope, African Children's Choir, I remember there was this lady who asked me, how did you fall down from that to this? But it was because of the love of the children. So I thank God, because although I left Ambassadors of Hope to go back home, to give back home, I also went back to children. So we have a nursery school. When I'm in nursery school, I'm like a nursery school child. When I'm in primary, I'm like a primary school child. When I'm in the senior school, so it gives me a lot of joy and satisfaction that I'm serving my community. Yes. I'm giving back. And as long as I still have breath in me, we shall still keep on moving. He's just going to make 73, 4th June. And I'm chasing him. Come 10-10, I came that they may have life and may have it more abundantly. That would be October 10-10, I make 70. So we are feeling good.
Wow, wow, wow. What an honor, what a privilege. So we are really in our last remarks, and I would love for you to give us your parting remarks. What do you want to say? Oh, I'm told there are some questions online. Okay, if there's any question, it can come through, then we will have our parting remarks from both Baba and Mami right here. Sanyu, I'm told you can ask questions.
Yes, they said that they're about to harvest trees. I'm just wondering when they planted those trees.
These trees, we planted them in blocks. The first block was planted in May 2007. And those are the ones that we want to start harvesting, because we took there some experienced tree growers and some NFA people. And when they saw the trees, they felt that they were old enough to be harvested. So we planted them in 2007. So now they're 15 years old. These are pine trees. Okay. Yeah.
Sanyu, have you been answered?
Yes, that's exactly answered. Thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else who has a question, something they would like expounded on, or a vote of thanks, perhaps? Okay, since we are not hearing from the audience, yes?
Okay. I thought I was keeping quiet to give somebody else a chance to speak, but I just want to thank the Opiokellos very, very much for this really, really wonderful session in so many ways. It's been hilarious. It's been gold, wealth of learning. It's very, very inspiring for us. I'm sure there are people out there who feel that they would probably want to hear a little more on the story. And even if it's not going to be here, please grant us the chance that we can come and sit at your feet every so often, because there is so much that we know there is still to know. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sanyu. I agree with you. It's been quite an interesting one, and there's so much that we have left out that we had planned to ask, because we don't want the session to be too long. But nonetheless, it's been incredible. I'm asking them to give us their parting remarks, anything in particular that they feel they would want to sow in our lives as words of wisdom, as seeds that we will carry away. And then once we are done, I'll request that they will pray a blessing upon each one of us, you know, as a group, we'll receive a blessing from Mom and from Baba as well. And then we'll close.
Well, the big drum sounds or I sound. I'll sound the small drum. I'll just wind up by saying that it has been nice. Thank you for allowing us to talk to you. We feel as though we went to Gayaza. And indeed, we went to Gayaza because we have had Jennifer, Carol, Lois, Rudy, all passing through Gayaza. So Gayaza has been our home, and you are our daughters together with those ones who are married. You are our sons-in-law. It's been good talking to you. It's a privilege. And I would just leave by saying the Bible says that in Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you. And God has good plans for each and every one of us. So as we travel through the seasons, please know that God has good plans for you. And finally, I would say that life is a journey. Life is a journey. And as you journey, there will be ups, there will be downs, but keep on going on. And as your motto says, never give up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Baba.
Okay, I think basically, I think Mami has said it all. I think as she has indicated, maybe just for emphasis, I think life is a journey to all of us. And for some people, there are many transitions in life. For others, there are fewer transitions. Sometimes some of us may lose our spouses at the time we don't expect that to happen. So you have to transition to maybe a single life again. Sometimes we lose our jobs when we don't expect to lose the job. Sometimes, we make poor investments and we lose a lot of money. I remember that there was a time we had, when Lutwat was taken over government, we lost, I think, all the vehicles we had. They were taken away by the army, wherever the vehicles were, in the garage, in town, and so on. And it kind of changed us in our thinking about material things. Because at that time, we had a car for Mommy, then I had a car for myself, then there's another car, two pickups, and all of them went around the same time. And we had to, for the first time, I went in a taxi to go to work, and which was kind of a big thing. and therefore, in many ways, I felt there was a transition. God was telling me something that sometimes maybe you rely too much on this thing, you need to change your thinking and so on. So things are going to happen to us. Wherever you are, whatever you do, things will happen. And when those things happen, as Mami has said, let us not give up. Let us continue the same path, despite the problems that may come, despite the burdens that may come, despite many, many issues that we are being confronted with all the time. If we are determined to move forward, if we ask God to help us to move forward, we will be able to move forward. Because it is a good thing to live a life that is where we have sort of emptied ourselves to others, so that by the time God is taking us, there is something we are left behind. Often we just think about material things, but I think if we can leave something other than material things behind us, it will be a blessing to those ones we're leaving behind, but also I think to ourselves. So that would be what I would want to say to all of us, and to appreciate also the class for coming up with this idea, because I think it has kept you together. I think it has generated many ideas, and I think it is going to build many of you in your families, in your homes, with all these talks being given by different people, different experiences. So it is something that perhaps others may want to imitate. So I think it's a great thing. I've also heard about other arrangements, maybe investment clubs and so on. I think these are things that you should invest in, so that others coming behind you will be able to get determined to do something that perhaps they will not have bothered about. So I want to thank you very much, and may the good Lord bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much, Baba. Thank you so much, Auntie Rachel. This has been an incredible experience for me. Always such a pleasure to even just be with you, but also now that you've shared so much of yourself, taking away the fact that now I know where the English girl name came from, because I've known about the English girl. I didn't know the background. And then the nail and Carol speaking up and saying it's her body. So that's a very interesting angle to know about Carol. Yeah. But thank you so much. And for everybody who has been on call, thank you for being there. Thank you for the time. I hope you've learned something or many things for that matter. And even as we go away, look forward to the next one. I pray you'll be there. You'll invite other people, more people to learn together so we go together. I thank you all and God bless us all. Bye.
Can we say a prayer?
Let's start.